get to some of the ones that have not so good grades.
Oh, no.
We're actually, Castle was our next one on the list. Not that I'm segueing into that necessarily. I'm just... Anyway, Castle is our next one on the list. B-.
I went C+. Yeah,
I debated about a C+. I'm not going to lie. I was... I didn't know if I would be too harsh to give it a C+.
I'm the harsh one today, guys.
No. I don't even mean that. It's just because, to be honest, there's a lot about this season I don't even remember. And to me, that's a negative on the show's side, because if you're not making memorable television, why would I give you a good grade? But I also, some of it may be for me that I'm just watching so much, it gets buried when it's old. I gave it a B- mostly because I still really like the funness between Castle and Beckett. I just feel like a lot around the show has gone haywire. The whole PTSD episode, I felt, was really the turning point for me, where I started to not like the season.
Oh, wow.
And especially the last episode, Cuffed, I was just like, what is this? I can't, I'm sorry, I know you're having fun writing this, like, it's crazy tiger, what? But I like to err on the side of realism a little bit more. And in terms of the PTSD episode, it wasn't, that theoretically should be such a real issue that you would think I would give it a good grade. But personally, I just felt like the way that her sequences were shot and the way that it came out of nowhere took me out of the story and took me out of the fact that, like, this is a serious issue that she's dealing with, and yet we're really only seeing it now. We're seeing it a lot right now, and it's kind of wrapped up. And I just felt like if you're going to do that, I felt like you have to pay a little more respect to it. I wanted to see them go deeper with it, and I wanted to actually see some residual effects. And maybe she will still have some residual effects in the back half of the season. I don't know. I liked a lot of the earlier episodes better, and I feel like it's getting less enjoyable for me. And, you know, anytime you're on a decline, it's kind of, that's when I tune out, because there's just so much on TV that if I'm no longer liking the show and no longer feeling like it's enriching my television, I stop watching it. So I'm a little concerned. And I think actually now that I'm saying all this, a B- might have been too high of a grade. I should have just stuck with the C+. This is why I was never a teacher.
And no, it's funny because I'm thinking, I'm like, maybe I was too harsh with the C+. And it's not even because it's Castle, because quite frankly, had it been just in terms of other television shows, it might have been a higher grade for me. But I feel like Castle, when it's done just so well, it does what it does so good. It's so enjoyable. But for me, this season has been made up of episodes that are either highly enjoyable. I actually loved Kill Shot. I thought that was an amazing episode.
I loved everything around those sequences in Kill Shot, I'll say that. And I love the fact that they really got to bring in John's backstory, and that was great. But yeah, go ahead, sorry.
No, don't worry about it. I mean, I feel like half of these episodes I have loved and have been in the top probably 5 or 10 of the series for me, and that I loved the premiere. I loved Cops and Robbers.
Yes,
that was a fantastic episode. And then there are episodes like where they go into Atlantic City. I watched that and I was like,
yes, that was one of the ones that, like, I feel like I should remember it better, but I think I've blocked it a little bit.
I mean, I will say I actually watched that live because I was in New York for work, so I didn't have the luxury of pausing or whatever, so that might have added to some of my frustration. But I was watching that.
On my TV.
I know, Danielle, but I like to use my DVR.
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah, when you think about that, like, if you're pausing shows to vent out your frustration and then go back to them, like, that should tell you something too. How many times are you pausing a show and an episode to vent out frustration? That's not a good thing.
Well, I mean, I don't normally do that. Okay, but I'm just saying, I can kind of, buffer the 20 minutes into it so I don't have to deal with commercials. Whereas if you're sitting around waiting for the commercials to end, if you're like, why am I watching
That's
this?
fair.
That kind of a thing, where you have that kind of thing. I did think they actually deal with her PTSD a little bit in the premiere.
Yeah, a little bit. And that's why I was glad they brought it back, but I just felt like they should have seeded it more throughout.
I mean, I feel like with this season, like I said, it's just been so hit or miss in terms of whether I really, really love it. And they're like the Atlantic City one. I'm sorry, I can't with that one. I love me some Castle. I actually think these guys are supremely talented, and they've done a great series so far.
Yeah.
But this season has been a little bit rocky for me. I mean, Cuffed was not it was what I expected, but it also wasn't. Like, I was pleasantly surprised that we got to see Ryan Esposito actually doing work
something.
because they're fantastic. I mean, yes, they're good cops,
But they only do work when they have to.
Right.
Because the show doesn't use them as much as they should.
Right. So it was kind of nice to be able to let them shine for once. It wasn't as much as it was, advertised as the Beckett and Castle hour. It really wasn't.
That's true.
So I did like that aspect of it, and you know what? I'm fine with their dance, so I'm kind of thinking I might have been a little bit more negative. I actually didn't remember I wrote a C+ until I flipped it over. I'm like, oh, I was that.
Do you want to switch cards? Should you take the B- and I'll take the C+? That's fine. I mean,
switch grades, guys.
It happens.
And it's like, I feel like maybe some of this negativity is also because I know how much amazing stuff is coming up. So I'm
I don't know for sure that it's amazing, so we'll see.
I'm like pleasantly hopeful about what's coming up, so I'm like a little bit harsher on what's
So you should take
aired.
the B-.
Well, we're swapping grades, guys.
It's fine. It's
totally
fine.
how this works.
It's fine.
Making up the rules as we go.
Yeah.